Hey guys, it is John C Morley here, serial entrepreneur. Great to be with you guys. It is December 4th. It is Monday, the start of a work week, and glad that you've come, whether you're here at 12:25 a.m. in the morning, 12:25 in the afternoon, right after lunch, or 3 a.m., 3 p.m., 6 p.m., 6 a.m., whatever. I'm really grateful that you're here. And we have an exciting week here planned, and we have a great guest coming up on Thursday. But we're talking about the fact that, you know, success, being successful is not about a laundry list. It's not. And we'll get to our master topic in a second. But for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm John C Morley, serial entrepreneur. And, it is my passion to create amazing, meaningful, purposeful content just for you guys, because I just love to inspire people. So I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, and I am, yes, a podcast host and a podcast coach and specialist in helping businesses tell a story that leads to them growing and being more scalable and, of course, more profitable. Now, I typically work with companies that bring in 10 million or more, and I will tell you that for me, I love to help businesses find their true story, their true passion in life, and to get people curious about their business. So we'll ask questions and potentially want to do business with them. So let's get right into our topic, shall we? All right. Our master topic, well, the subtopic for today is feelings fueling success, unpacking leadership, commitment, and drive. Series 2 means we're in the second year, show 49, and we're on episode number 2. So tonight, we're going to talk about leadership. And I want to read a quote that Napoleon Bonaparte once said, and I quote, "Glory is fleeting, but obscurity is forever." A very interesting quote. And the thing is, leadership. There are a lot of dimensions of leadership, right? And people might ask you, why should I be a leader? And that gets us to another great question. Are leaders born or made? Well, guess what? They're made. Everyone asks this question. And what's the definition of a leader? According to Dr. Paul Hersey, he defines leadership, and I quote, as working with and through others to achieve objectives. Given this definition, anyone in a position whose achievement requires the support of others can play the role of a leader. So let me say that again. According to Dr. Paul Hersey, he defines leadership as, yes, someone that really values this. So let's talk about this for a second. So we're talking about leaders. And leaders, are they born or are they made? And they're made. And according to Dr. Paul Hersey, he defines leadership as working with and through others to achieve objectives. So again, he defines leadership as working with and through others to achieve objectives. And when you give this definition, anyone in a position whose has achievement requires the support of others can play the role of a leader, working with and through others to achieve an objective. That's pretty cool. So can people who are already working to influence others become more effective leaders? Absolutely, yes. When we think about leadership, more people are asking the question, are you sure they're not just born? They're not. They're made. And there's been lots of research done on this from the University of Illinois and lots of other studies. And what does science say about it? Well, researchers across the globe have tried answering the question, like many others. And they want to know if it's a genetic component that makes a leader a leader. Or is it something people learn over time from a mentor? And a famous debate at the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy in 2016 had two groups from the Academic Fellows Program and had them argue over which side had the most evidence in their favor. The groups looked at several studies of twins to compare leadership traits, and the findings were not as conclusive as they likely hoped. The side which argued that leaders are born and not made showed examples of twins who demonstrated impressive leadership capabilities, such as astronauts Mark and Scott Kelly. The side which favored leadership is learned. Arguments showed examples of leadership principles and traits that cannot be generic, such as a passion for helping others. So leadership traits and how to develop them are very important. And unfortunately, leadership is not something you are born with. Leadership is something that you have to aspire to, accept responsibility, be a person that's all about constant learning, motivate others into action, adapt to changes, show empathy. Leadership does demand work. And if you're somebody that just thinks you're going to press buttons or get other people to do things, well, then you're not a leader. A true leader will get his or her hands dirty to teach others what needs to be done. And when we think about this question again, are leaders born or made? Again, I say to you, leaders are made. So, is a leader a superhero? I don't think he or she's a superhero, but I do think that they have demonstrated a huge amount of wherewithal because they put up with a lot of challenges in their life, right? And again, I ask you the question, are leaders born or made? And it's a debate that goes on and on. See, the people that think that leaders are born don't understand the fact that a leader's role is dynamically changing in their life. It changes. And what you did today to be a leader will be different than what you'll do tomorrow to be a leader. So people often ask me, hey, John, how are today's leaders different than the years before? And it's changed over generations, okay? People now are all on this kick about servant leadership. It's not about giving up who you are as a person. It's about how you can foster who you are to other people to inspire them to either be like that or to adopt their own way. A lot of people work hard, and we're expected to work even harder. If we're unhappy, it was the old way of doing things. People would say this phrase all the time, and I quote, "Don't let the door hit you in the butt," or something else on the way out. But the expectation was for life to be dedicated to success of an organization. As the pandemic pushed through, it meant 24/7, 365 commitment, and was tough, but not exactly the walk uphill barefoot to school both ways. Tough, but tough. And we learned that the value of a dollar and developed a strong work ethic. But a lot of people don't learn until they're put into that precarious situation, until they're put into that challenge. Leadership has changed from 10 years ago to 20 years ago. It's different. Leadership is more about a partnership. 20 years ago was about providing direction. Leadership isn't different, but the leaders are. Whether we're talking about millennials, Generation Zs, the dynamic in the workforce is changing. Advanced technologies with more customer sophisticated processes have changed things. And we have many ways to communicate with our teams now. 10, 20 years ago, that didn't even exist. It's much more today for a leader to subscribe to a less hierarchical organization than they did years ago. Service goes further than we thought. And we know this now. TV stations were filled with leadership 20 years ago, loud, pushy, and take no prisoners attitude. But they're realizing that the real leaders are the ones that walk softly and carry a big stick, meaning they never need to use the stick, but they're respected and they're revered. Okay. So we can't do things the old way. because there's a lot more that's happening. There's more stuff, whether we're talking about HR, whether we're talking about sales. And every generation is going to be different. And even the ones before us and the ones after us, they're going to be different. Leaders are going to be different. Again, people have evolved and leadership has changed. There's been more of a focus on the role of the follower and the recognition of leadership complexity. Leadership has evolved to focus more on relationships now, where that wasn't even in the limelight years ago. Recognition on the complexity of leadership, moving from a mechanical view to a relationship view. What about even thinking about leaders in the fact of how do we view other leaders? What will the future bring us, right? How are we going to impact the world so that we can make that change that can allow people to propel forward? Today, a leader is a lot more because they've got a lot on their plate, right? And so when we think about, even 2000, right, leadership shifted from the autocratic style toward a more collaborative approach, trying to foster more teamwork, innovation, productivity, creativity, and also inclusion. We saw this with universities. Of course, originally started with the No Discrimination Act, but it's more than that. It's more of the whole point of us all working together. And we fast forward the 20 years, the majority of the population would be lost without their iPhones. And reality TV has gone wild, as we know, but people wouldn't be able to live without it. Leadership has changed. Fundamental qualities have changed. But leaders haven't really changed. We still need leaders who have a clear vision, who can and are willing to communicate that vision to inspire others in a very memorable way. The internet had only been mainstream for a while, and then it took over. I mean, look what's happening now with AI and how AI is causing people, excuse me, to really grow in who they are. Now, you might be saying, John, I'm the best leader there is. And I want to tell you that if you believe that and you don't keep training, someone's going to pass you up. I don't say that to be nasty. I say that you've got to be at the edge of your game all the time. Are you managing or are you leading? And managing's great. Leading is also good. But I think we have to understand the difference between delegation. We have to understand perspectives, changing roles, values. We have to come across as a friend, but not over the border. We have to still come off as a boss. So be in the middle between a boss and a friend, but not be the person that they can just walk over. Leadership has changed, but the leader hasn't. And I think the biggest challenge for people today is knowing that this new disruptive trend is around them, and it's quantum. Okay. It's that big. Rapid change. Legacy people said it worked fine last time. Let's do it again. But it doesn't work that way anymore. That's the way we always do it. Can't do that anymore. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, if you keep living by these rules, you won't be in business. You'll get disengaged employees, product launches that are going to lack inspiration, customer service divisions that no longer care, and institutions issuing forecasts of trade contractions that just won't make sense. So what's the future in leadership? Developing a change mindset. The future of work has to have agile workers who can make quick decisions, who are empathetic in times of crisis or change. Organizations will become more fluid. Collaboration, shared goals, sustainable recruitment, contingent workforce expansion, increased digitization. We're going to see that more and more. Hybrid teams. Leadership skills of the future. There are a lot of publicly traded companies out there. And you send somebody an email You know what happens? They don't get back to you. Supposed to be the person that you're working with, they don't get back to you. You have to send an email to like a whole team of people to almost shame them. And then they don't get back to you until their head boss tells them to get back to you. Leaders have to know how to negotiate, how to manage projects, how to cultivate and grow with strategic thinking, how to develop talent, how to retain it. Understanding servant leadership, it's not just a buzzword for networking. It's truly got to be a way of life. Leadership in the future is going to require workers to serve first, and the bosses will be second. Servant leadership is an opportunity to serve others. Traditional leadership is a rank to obtain. The servant understands it's not about them. Traditional believes everything is about them. In the servant shares power and control to drive engagement. Traditional utilizes power and control to drive performance. In the servant, they listen. In the traditional, they speak. In the servant, they're humble. In the traditional, they're very hubris. And the servant, they have integrity. And in the traditional, they lie. In the servant, there's selflessness. In the traditional, they're selfish. In the servant, they foster trust. In the traditional, every day, they work to instill fear to get you to do something because they know they can't. And the only way that they can get something to happen is by putting fear in you. Now, that's not the greatest way to lead. Sounds like a person with a big whip and a stick. But if we don't embrace these new trends, we're going to find ourselves alone the workforce, alone as leaders with no one to lead. A person that feels that their skills are not able to benefit this world, but they could if they just adopted to these simple little changes. So leadership is evolving. Leadership is changing. Okay. And the work has changed a lot in 2022 and even beyond. Fairness and equity are the defining issue for organizations now. They launch press releases to share the fact that they're being inclusive about everyone, every gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, color, creed. We never need to do that before. They're jumping on every bandwagon they can to try to get media exposure. Leadership trends, my friends, are changing, but the leaders are not. And that's our big problem. We have to inspire leaders at every single level. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing I want to tell you. And we have to foster that growth mindset, develop empathetic leaders, encourage continuous learning and development, encourage leaders to change and be champions, nurture resilience in themselves and other leaders, encourage a learning mindset, advancing gender and generational diversity for inclusion, practicing servant leadership, emphasizing a purpose-driven leadership, addressing unconscious bias in leadership, focusing on transparent and authentic leadership, promising resilience in times of crisis, encouraging leaders to be servant mentors, fostering ethical decisions, leveraging technology for leadership, enhancing digital leadership, emphasizing data-driven decision, enhancing virtual teams, integrating technology to leadership training, building diverse leadership pipelines, addressing diversity and inclusion gaps, addressing unconscious bias in talent, promoting mentorship and sponsorships, and there are dozens more. But if you don't embrace the concept that a leader has to first be able to do. No leader will ever be successful if they just tell and point fingers. A leader has to start by showing how they do, not as they say. Too many leaders in the past said, this is what you should do. Do as I say, not as I do. That's an oxymoron. Who in their right mind would follow a leader that says, do as I say, not as I do? Not me. I want to follow a leader who I can see and actually notice that he or she is making changes in the world with my own eyes, with my own ears. I don't want to hear what I should be doing. I want to see it. I want to live it. I want to breathe it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know how important leadership is. I am John C Morley, serial entrepreneur. You know, it's been a privilege, a pleasure, an honor to be with you this fantastic evening. And of course, you know, I'm a podcast host and a podcast coach and a specialist in helping businesses tell a story that leads to them growing and being more scalable. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, more profitable. I typically work with companies that bring in 10 million or more. And I'm very passionate about creating stories to get people curious about you and your company so they'll ask more questions. I hope you guys had an amazing evening. Be sure to like, love, support the channel. Comment below. Click on the PayPal link. Make the choice to buy my team and I a cup of coffee. You'll all be so grateful. Those pennies and dollars will invest into your hardware, your technology, your equipment, your software, even your facilities to give you the most jaw-dropping, motivational content to empower you to have an amazing life. What are you waiting for, ladies and gentlemen? Have yourself a great life and start becoming the leader that you were made to be. Have a good night, everyone.